How is climate change impacting California's marine protected areas? And what if these areas weren't just victims of the climate crisis, but actually part of the solution? At Orange County Coastkeeper, we work to protect clean water and build resilient watersheds throughout our region. To dive deeper into this topic, we spoke with experts to find out what marine protected areas can show us about climate change.
Climate change is essentially the change in weather patterns and temperatures over a period of time. And what we're seeing right now with climate change is the unprecedented speed that climate is changing.
Largely through the combustion of fossil fuels, the use of plastics and petroleum products, which all come from these fossil fuel sources. This is carbon that was locked away deep in our earth and was not meant to kind of be re-released in our lifetime.
MPAs are affected by climate change the same way the rest of the ocean is affected. So climate change doesn't stop at the boundaries of an MPA. Marine protected areas are places that have been designated to limit human impact.
We actually have the biggest network of connected MPAs in the world.
What's really important about that is in California for our entire state is there are 124 of these MPA zones.
And in Orange County, we have 7 marine protected areas. And that all started in 1999 with the Marine Life Protection Act,
which was a law that mandated California to create marine protected areas.
And each marine protected area has a different conservation goal.
It's not only for biodiversity and specific species-specific areas and resources, but also in those areas, there's different cultural resources as well.
So it is important to know that we can access and recreate in marine protected areas, and they're not here to keep humans out. They're just here to limit the impacts, but still allow us to connect with these places that we all love.
In regards to climate change, MPAs are very important because they help protect local biodiversity on our coastline.
And think about a strong, healthy ecosystem is like having a strong, healthy body. And if you are running a marathon or a race, that's a stressor to your body, right? Well, marine protected areas help create these healthy ecosystems that protect plants and animals. Just like if you were going to run a marathon or a race, you would want to have a strong, healthy body that gets lots of rest, gets food and water, and marine protected areas allow the plants and animals to rest. They allow them to have more food and get bigger, stronger, healthier, and older so they can survive the impacts of climate change.
And there's all different types of impacts. So we have marine heat waves, which are increases in temperatures to the ocean. And this has really big impacts such as having more disease outbreaks or perhaps a decline in kelp populations. We also see ocean acidification.
So ocean acidification is a worldwide impact coming from climate change. And what's occurring is carbon in the atmosphere is being absorbed into the ocean.
The ocean is shifting from where it naturally kind of stands in terms of pH, which is a base, which if you remember from high school chemistry, is having a pH of a little bit above a 7. So bases are anything 7 to a 14. The ocean is a little bit of a base, so it's probably closer to like an 8. But we're seeing a shift in a change in that pH, and it's moving towards the acidic side, below a 7.
In California, we've been doing a lot of research, and we have identified that not only is ocean acidification and hypoxia a global problem, but it's also a local problem as well. Research has shown that wastewater facilities, the nutrients that are coming from wastewater facilities, are exacerbating ocean acidification and hypoxia. And from August to October every year, there's what we're calling ocean acidification and hypoxia hotspots. And these hotspots are actually compressing the amount of habitat that's livable in our oceans. California Coastkeeper Alliance is largely trying to really just educate the public about this issue. I mean, one of the biggest problems is you can't really see ocean acidification and hypoxia happening. No one knows that for 3 months of the year, there's all these dead zones off our coast.
As the ocean temperature increases, the water molecules in the ocean actually expand when the water warms. Kind of like if you were boiling water and that water expands and gets warmer. The water expands in the ocean, it starts to rise, and we're seeing levels rising along our coast at a pretty significant rate. The estimates are that by 2050, the sea level is going to rise 1 to 6 feet. along our coastline. And we've only seen inches right now. So we're seeing, it seems like a small amount that sea level's rising, but we've seen some really big impacts from that. So we've seen flooding along our coastline. We've seen parking lots and infrastructure along our coastline being damaged and ecosystems being affected by it.
Climate change has also impacted specifically here in Laguna Beach in our kelp forest. So we've seen a 30% decline in kelp forests in Southern California, as well as a 60% increase in ocean acidification throughout the Pacific Ocean. Climate change has also been impacting upwelling. So upwelling is a really important event to all of our oceans, but specifically here on the West Coast. So if you imagine the ocean like this hearty bowl of soup, like all the really good bits, the noodles and all the, the protein and the herbs and spices and all those things. Inside that bowl, if you leave it alone, all the good tasty bits are gonna kind of fall to the bottom of the bowl as it slowly cools or changes temperature with time. Well, upwelling would be like stirring your soup and kind of getting that perfect spoonful in. So without upwelling, we're unable to bring the nutrients up to the surface of the waters for other organisms to feed off of, and that adds to the biodiversity. With less biodiversity in our ocean, that means we have a less resilient and resistant environment and ocean to combat climate change. So climate change is weakening some of that stirring ability within our oceans.
There's no wall or border that can keep climate change out of marine protected areas. So we're still going to see the heat waves and the sea level rise and the ocean acidification within marine protected areas. But the difference is that marine protected areas provide other benefits that might help the ecosystems and species within them to be more resilient to climate change.
When there are changes in the environment, organisms have a place and the ability to adapt to those changes because their particular habitat isn't going to change as much because the habitat is intact.
So I know climate change, the topic of climate change can be scary and it can be daunting to try to fix or change. The more we can do to protect natural ecosystems, the better. So protecting natural estuaries and natural dunes along our coastline is really going to help. We are seeing now that we have these different adaptations that we're doing along our coast. Instead of building a wall to hold back the Pacific Ocean or putting rocks along the coastline to kind of hold back the ocean, we're really looking at these natural features and trying to use those to adapt. So there's something called a living shoreline now that a lot of places in California are looking at doing.
Our living shoreline projects restores coastal habitats using natural materials such as native plants and oyster beds to reduce coastal erosion, increase biodiversity, and reduce the impacts of storm surge.
One of the most important things is to get out to these special places and enjoy them and be inspired to take action.
We need to make better educational pathways in order for students to even see what's out there, and also more exposure pathways so that students can actually come to the ocean. And there's students that come from schools like even 5 to 10 miles inland that don't really have as much access to the coastlines as you would think. When students are able to come out and see these things in real time, it really opens their eyes and shows them why it's so important. And it also kind of gives them like a renewed passion for the environment. And they need more steps like what's next from that, creating even high school internships. I know that a lot of times internship opportunities are for college students that are already in that field or already know what they want to do, but it's middle school students and high school students that are still trying to figure out what they want to do. And how significant would it be to have more people of color being able to get in those positions because they went on a field trip when they were younger or they had an opportunity created for them that wasn't there before.
I love it when I have visitors to our beaches. I love it even more when we see people piling out of the cars because they carpooled to get here, or when they take the initiative to use some of our free public transit through our city. All of this is going to help lower carbon footprints by not putting as much carbon dioxide into our atmosphere, and this lowers the burden on our sequestering organisms like our seabeds and our kelp.
We're really trying to educate the public, decision makers, the governor's office, the legislature about these impacts. California has actually been supporting research for a decade now, and that's how we know about these hotspots. but decision makers really aren't up to speed. It's a very technical and wonky issue. And so trying to educate folks and get the public to understand it. In my work, this is one of the scariest issues that we're facing. And yet very few people actually understand and know that it's happening. We have been also working to set policies and set goals for the State Water Board to move forward on developing an ocean acidification and hypoxia policy.
I think it's really important to have civic engagement and grassroots solutions, which basically means making sure that marine protected areas involve the communities that live by them and care about them. And so there's a lot of ways to get involved. You can attend meetings for the Department of Fish and Wildlife or the Fish and Game Commission to raise your concerns or give your solutions. We also have at the MPA Collaborative Network 14 chapters that bring together people in different places throughout California to work towards shared goals of protecting the ocean.
So one thing to think about and consider in California is that a lot of indigenous people that were the original peoples of the state of California were actually pushed off our coastline. And so now we're looking at these kind of relationships where we're trying to partner with different state agencies and different nonprofits. We want to make sure that the people that are doing the real-time science in modern times are also listening to the traditional knowledge keepers in order to keep a better balance so that we can have a brighter path forward.
As part of the Marine Life Protection Act, the Department of Fish and Wildlife was mandated to do what's called adaptive management. Every 10 years, we need to look at how marine protected areas are doing and what kind of threats there are, and then change the way we manage these areas.
As far as long-term is to continue, no matter what administration's in office, to make sure that people realize that climate change is real and these zones that we have protected in the state of California are here for a reason. We don't want to see the coastline as just an area that we play in. There's so much biodiversity and so much species specific and significance here. In our culture, we try and do things thinking 7 generations ahead. And so for us, that's always been a long-term goal is now that we're in more of these conversations about protecting our coastline, we want to make sure that we not only protect it for our tribal people, but we also protect it for everybody that utilizes the coastline from now on.